Hi there. Welcome to The Preventable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us. Welcome to The Preventable. So this is another mini episode where we're digging into the weeds, talking about cannabis and kids and cannabis and Missouri residents and what it means for us because, gosh, it just is changing all the time. So much new information. So thanks for another episode of In the Weeds. Let's dig in. So with me today is Jennifer Rhoad. She is Executive Director of Smithville Community in Action. That's a coalition, right, Jennifer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you're also a facilitator for a group that's really tackling cannabis at the state level. And we'll dig into that more in a second. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So where is Smithville for people who might not know?
Smithville is a suburb of Kansas City on the north side. So we're just in Chiefs Kingdom over here on the sort of other side of the state from where you guys are.
Excellent. Okay. And so you are one coalition in a prevention resource center. There are 10 throughout the state of Missouri, and every coalition kind of has their own focus. Yes, they're concerned about substance use and mental health, especially when it relates to kids, but everybody kind of has their own little take on it. So could you talk to me a little bit about the things that make Smithville, your coalition there, really unique and stand out from the rest?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, our coalition is like a super active coalition. Honestly, we have a ton of volunteers that participate in our coalition, which is an awesome situation to have. And the coalition has been active since 1994. We're actually getting ready this school year to celebrate our 30th anniversary.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And so they've just done a tremendous amount of work. They got a drug-free communities grant in 2018. And as part of that drug-free communities grant, the two sort of substances they focus on as part of that funding are underage drinking and youth marijuana use. And so as we were doing some strategic planning on what our action items would be, one of the things that we really were concerned about was that at the time, medical marijuana, the amendment in the Missouri Constitution, did not have any kind of youth prevention clauses or rules put into it. And it was just making our job difficult. We were going to have a medical marijuana dispensary in Smithville. We knew that was going to be an issue, and increased availability always leads to increased youth use. And so we knew that was going to be an issue. And so we started wondering what we could do to investigate more prevention on the state level for youth marijuana use. And I talked to our local prevention resource center at the time, headed by Vicki Ward. And she referred me to Chuck Doherty, who was at ACT Missouri. And just talking with Chuck, I was sort of new to prevention in 2019 when we were having these conversations. And so he kind of let me know about the history of sort of, trying to prevent medical marijuana from getting passed on the ballot and things like that. And in talking with him, he said that Joy Sweeney, who was the executive director or the former executive director of the Council for Drug-Free Youth in Jefferson City, had this statewide coalition for youth drug prevention called Keeping Missouri Kids Safe. And I had not heard of it before, but I went back and talked to our PRC who had been involved with it, and they told me more about it. And I knew Joy because I had gone to CADCA Forum with her and met her there. And she had just started her job at CADCA then in Washington, D.C. So she was no longer doing the group. And so we talked, Joy and I talked, and then she came and did, this was during the the sort of
Pandemic. Oh
shutdown
yeah.
during the pandemic at that time. So she actually did a Zoom presentation for our coalition at the time, just talking about the history of keeping Missouri kids safe and what they had accomplished and the things that they had done. And so the coalition really looked at that, and still were just considering their strategic plan action items, and just decided that it would fit in to what we were trying to do to sort of revitalize that coalition, because it had stopped meeting when Joy
Right.
went to Washington D.C. Just no one else had stepped up into the leadership position to facilitate it.
And so really, so Smithville Community Coalition is one part of the state, but really your other hat is really being a facilitator for the statewide issue called
Right,
Keeping Missouri Kids Safe.
right, yeah.
Awesome. So it's kind of like you wear two hats.
Yeah, well, and as part of our strategic planning for a local coalition, it is just evaluating that
Absolutely.
capacity to have more of an influence on the state
So let
as
me
far as
ask
prevention
you
efforts.
about keeping Missouri kids safe.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that initiative? I know it's primarily volunteer led, right, and people from around the state really engaging in advocacy opportunities. Um, what what like how does it work and what successes have you seen so far? And then we'll talk about roadblocks in a minute, but I want to be I want to talk about successes so far.
Yeah. So Joy gave me all the material they had. They had already, sort of come up with like an like an action plan. They had a member list and things like that. So I emailed out all the members just asking if there was interest in starting the group back up. There was significant interest, and so we went ahead and had that first sort of Zoom meeting, which we always have Zoom meetings um, in September of 2021. And they had not been meeting for a couple years at that point. And so we really got together, and the first thing we did was sort of tried to find other states that had a marijuana state coalition specifically, because we had heard, some of us are involved in like the alcohol
Right,
action
exactly.
networks, or aware of other states that have, UAD state coalitions and things like that. So we were kind of trying to find a state that had a coalition specific to marijuana use prevention, and we were not able to find one. So what we did was just talk to other states that had really robust state coalitions, and we just spent those first few months talking to them. They zoomed in with us. We talked to Ohio and Virginia and Utah and Iowa, of course, AC4C, and Texas. And so we just got to know a little bit about what those coalitions look like. And then we spent some time just talking about what we wanted our coalition to look like. And we are mainly prevention professionals that are, just going above and beyond what we get paid to do, or,
Right.
like what our regular job
Yeah.
is, to meet once a month and do this. And so after we did that, we decided what our coalition would look like. We, developed that mission and the vision, and then we applied, or we talked to CADCA about going through their National Coalition Academy.
Mm.
And so we did that. We had at least 2 people each week go through that 3-week training, sort of intensive training for Coalition Academy, and ended up, graduating from that. So we had this really strong sort of roadmap for what we wanted to do. And what we really want to do is just act as a resource for prevention professionals to be able to take action with their coalition.
Now, do you have to be a prevention professional to be part of the coalition? And if
No,
people are
absolutely.
listening and they want to join your coalition, how does that work?
Yeah. So we have monthly meetings on the first Thursday of every month at 2 p.m. and it's just you can email me to get on that list, together for Missouri at gmail.com. We can get that together, and I can get that for you. I don't know if you can put it in
Yes, that would be great.
the description of the podcast, but we can get you on the list, the meeting email list. It's always the same Zoom link every month. So
And they're all virtual, so you can join in from across the state. And
they're
it could be, I mean, you don't have to be in prevention to be part of the coalition, right?
no, absolutely. We have people who are not in prevention, that are interested, just people who are passionate about youth marijuana prevention, or people who have been involved in sort of advocacy efforts in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of crossover, I think, between tobacco use
Mhm.
prevention and marijuana prevention, and so there's a lot of people who've been involved in, like, um, clean indoor air acts.
What if I'm just like a parent or a grandparent and I just am kind of interested at the type of advocacy that's happening around the state? Would that be an appropriate place for me to come?
Absolutely, we would love that. In fact, CADCA has this 12 sector strategy, and we would love to have a really robust membership from all of those different sectors: church and business and civic organizations and parents and youth. We would welcome that as well. So,
So I know, if people have been reading the news or watching or listening to the news, there's been a lot of conversation around the governor's kind of what's on his desk when it comes to different products with various amounts of THC and hemp derivative beverages and all the things. And it's been in the news quite extensively because there's lots of conflict. And so one of the things that your group is really urging people to do, and depending on when people are listening to this, it's either will have happened or they still have a window, but one opportunity for advocacy is really making comments, right, for the governor to consider um, as he's looking at these executive orders on his desk.
yeah. So, his executive order 10, 2024-10, would sort of regulate those hemp derived THC products that are not currently regulated on the national level or the state level. And those have sort of been on our radar as a group for a long time. We actually do annual environmental scan to see how many retailers are selling those kinds of things. We send that report to legislators every year. We did have a couple of bills in the legislature this year, Senate Bill 984 and House Bill, I can't remember off the top of my head now what the House bill was. And they both got, passed out of their committees unanimously, and then they
which
just never
is
made it
which
to the
is
floor for
rare.
a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super rare. I mean, there's really just no controversy about it. These products need to be regulated. It's dangerous to have
You're not trying to
unregulated products.
ban them. You're saying they need to be regulated.
I mean, I think it would be great if they were banned, but we're not really. We provide lots of information to
Right.
educate people about what is going on, but
Got it.
um they just never made it to the floor for a vote. And so, I anticipate we'll see legislation on the floor again. The governor's executive order, he did have alcohol tobacco control submit emergency rules for that so that it could go into effect on September 1st, but the Secretary of State didn't find cause to issue emergency rules.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what are some of the dangers with those hemp drinks? Because, people drink them thinking that there's not THC in them and they are maybe a legal option. Could you talk just briefly about why we should care about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll continue saying that, so that the rules process, it's just the traditional rules making process. So it could take up to 6 months for those rules to come
Right.
into effect for ATC to be able to regulate it. Um, we will have a different governor at that point. So that
That's true.
governor may have different priorities. So I don't know
That's
what the
true.
future of that executive order is, but hopefully we can get some legislation passed that would make it more enforceable for multiple agencies rather than just
Gotcha.
ATC. So talking to our local alcohol tobacco control representative, what he said was that the real concern was that liquor stores were creating very enticing displays of these drinks that could be very kid friendly. The flavors and things like that would also appeal to kids. There's just no regulation in packaging or what it could look like or what kinds of products it could mimic. A lot of times these displays were very close to the front entrance, something that everyone was passing that were going into these
Which is a
establishments.
trick we've seen with cannabis products, tobacco products, alcohol products. Like this is part of the problem with the commercialization of
Right.
these, yes, of these drugs. Yeah.
And so ATC, just tried to have friendly conversations with these establishments that were selling products in this manner or these types of products, and weren't able to get anywhere with those kinds of relationship building strategies. And so I think that was sort of the impetus behind the executive order. But one of the big problems that ATC has with these products being sold in establishments with a liquor license is that the way they enforce the federal law is that you cannot sell marijuana if you have any kind of THC product, if you have a liquor license or an alcohol distribution license. And so they had a real problem with that because, not even the constitutionally legal THC would be able to be sold if you have a liquor license. And so they didn't want these hemp derived products to be able to be sold in those establishments either. They want to be able to enforce everything consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. And ATC again is the alcohol tobacco control.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And so, really, I don't mean to boil this down to simplistic terms, but for people who are not really familiar with CADCA and SPIF and all of the strategic framework, essentially, you are uh, a facilitator of a statewide group that is really paying attention to advocacy issues related to cannabis and hemp products and THC and all the things because of its implications to kids' health. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes. And we sort of collaboratively pay attention to it. We share just ways that we can in our own communities do something, make an impact, or on a statewide level as well. Keeping Missouri Kids Safe is not its own 501c3. It's not its own registered coalition. It's just a group of people that are going above and beyond to meet and collaborate. And so the Keeping Missouri Kids Safe doesn't really do any of the actual community change, right? We're just facilitating people who are doing that kind of work to have better resources, because really there's not a lot of federal or national resources to do this kind of work. And so it was just really important to us, since we have this specific condition here in Missouri where we have legal marijuana and unregulated THC hemp derived products. We need to be able to tackle those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's ahead for the group? Obviously paying really close attention to this executive order and what that could mean with changing administration. What else is sort of on your radar?
Yeah, we look forward to there being a bill introduced into the legislature this next legislative session to regulate these products as well. We just continue to look forward to the state developing some educational resources that would be, equivalent to what the state already does with tobacco use prevention or alcohol use prevention, that would be specific to marijuana. And we know that that's coming. We also really watch part of the amendment for that legalized adult use marijuana or non-medical marijuana was the establishment of some grants that would go to nonprofits. So we watch that really closely so that we can promote that to people who are looking for funding to do this kind of work. So we have those kinds of things that we just try to keep on the radar. And we also try to, point out just resources that we can use every day, whether that could be like social media graphics that you could use to post to your social media pages, or letters you could write to the editor of your local paper, or things like that you would inform people of. A lot of people in our group also cross over with Missouri Prevention Advocacy Leaders, or MOPAL, and so we get involved in that Prevention Day at the Capitol, which will be February 12th this year.
Awesome.
We have our annual meeting in person at the Missouri Substance Use Prevention Conference. So we will.
And that's in November, right?
That's in November. So the date and details haven't been finalized, but it'll probably be the evening of that first day of the prevention conference. And they are just really generous, and they let people who are not registered to attend that conference still come to our meeting that evening.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
That's not going to be an exclusion, and that is in St. Charles this year, so it will be.
Okay. And so we will make sure to include your email in the podcast description for people who want to find out more about that annual in-person meeting or the monthly Zoom meetings, or maybe more about Prevention Day Prevention Day at the Capitol, and how they can get more involved there. These are my words, not yours, but it's kind of like your group is a little bit of a watchdog, making sure that the money that's being collected is being spent appropriately and on things that will benefit the state. Lots of money coming in from this, and it's important that the money's being spent the way that it was intended, and on things that will actually promote health. So again, those are my words, not yours, but it's incredibly important what you're doing.
Well, yeah, thank you. I think it's great. I've met a lot of people who, are just in the same boat. And I think it is just encouraging to know that we're not alone in this work and this effort. And we're all trying to just keep kids safe from those dangers that go with any kind of substance use when your brain is still developing. So
that's right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. And thank you again for all of the work that you're doing. I told you we were going to get in the weeds today. So this was a little wonky, a little political, but for some people who are like policy nerds, like, you probably really appreciated this episode. So if you liked what you heard, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to The Preventable. And definitely, if you have more questions, please go to prevent+ed.org/intheweeds and submit those questions so we can answer them here on the pod. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us at The Preventable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at prevented.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The Preventable.